Hello and welcome to Sundays with the Bushes. We've been going for a little while, but we're back now and we're ready to go. We have so much to tell you all about because we've been doing research, we've been talking to couples, we've been meeting with couples who've been together for a year, we've been speaking to couples who've been together for 50 years. So we've gotten a lot of information and we can't wait to share it with you all. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, I'm Tyrus and this is Shaone Bush, and we've been married going on 11 years this year. And what we do on Facebook Live is we create a forum for couples, for singles, for people who are dating, for people who just like to hear about relationships and the relationship
who are looking to date,
people
who are divorced looking for another spouse,
kind of
stuff,
and people who just like
lost their spouse has passed away. So everyone is looking. 67, my grandmother's in her 60s looking for a man. So you know somebody, let me know.
I don't know. We got to regulate that a little bit. But anyway, just anybody who is interested in relationships, dating, love, and relationships, we are here just creating this forum so that we can, help people have functional and successful relationships. The biggest thing that is, hurting the modern family and that's hurting the black family is the fact that we can't stay together. And we don't necessarily see eye to eye as much as we could. But what I'm so glad about is that there has been a word that has been sent through us and sent through all of you who will comment, to help other people who are going through situations. So, with that said, let's get to our topic today. Now, like I said, in the past, we've talked about dating, marriage relationships, people who are looking to date, but, we've been doing so much research. The one thing that we found in our talking and in our reading is that people don't know how to be in relationships in general.
Any kind of relationship.
Not just a spouse relationship or boyfriend-girlfriend relationship or I'm talking to you and I kind of like you relationship. We don't do relationships right.
Right. People's whole families are falling
apart. And see, the fact is that it's easier to look at the statistics for failed marriages because you have to go through a legal process to get divorced. So they know the divorce rate. But how many people do you know and how many people do we know who have unofficially divorced their brothers or divorced their sisters or divorced their parents, cousins, aunts, uncles, people they just want to write off because, they don't see eye to eye. Right. And the problem is that when you don't know how to do relationships right, you are really not going to know how to do a romantic love relationship properly. So, I think today we want to kind of focus on general relationships, how to be successful in relationships.
Right.
So, there are three things that we kind of talked about and came up with. And those three things, and we're going to kind of go through them today about what they mean and how they can impact your relationships in a greater way. The first is, and this is mine. If you've been watching the show, and if you haven't seen any of the other episodes, you can always go on the Facebook page of Sundays with the Bushes, and you can watch our older videos. But the number one thing for me on the road to a successful relationship is you have to identify your relationship. Identify it.
Any relationship that you're in, right?
Any relationship that you're in. Because today we're not just talking about marital relationships or romantic relationships. We're talking about relationships across the board. How do you relate to your grandmother and your mother and your father and your sister? You have to identify those relationships because sometimes, and my mom used to say this to me when I was young, she didn't even know what she was doing. She didn't have a psychological foundation or support to it. But she would tell me, I'm the mother and you're the child.
Right.
She was identifying the relationship so that we knew where we were in the relationship and how we should respond to each other in the realm of that relationship. So whatever relationship you find yourself in, you have to identify the relationship. You know? And I think people misunderstand what a relationship is too. I think, you know, people have a hard time identifying what relationship they're in because they don't know what relationship really means.
Well, because a lot of relationships are just, you know, when you grow up, okay, you know your mother, you know your father, you know your grandparents. Those are just titles, you know, given to you for relation purposes or whatever. Okay, you know that's your aunt, you know that's your uncle. But, you know, does your aunt know how to be an aunt? Do you know how to be a niece? Do you know how to be a daughter? Does your father know how to be a father? And vice versa. And I think that's the problem because, you know, we're born, obviously your mom's going to wipe your butt, change your diaper, buy you clothes, give you food.
But
hopefully, I mean, that's what most mothers are supposed to do, the basic things.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying those relationships are identified by the title, not necessarily the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore, you know, people don't grow up knowing how to be in these relationships.
Yeah. And people don't realize that relationships, like you just brought up the titles and those things like that. Relationships are simply connections that we have to people. If you look at relationships as simply connections that we have to people, I think that you'll have a better stability when it comes to identifying your relationship, because it's easier to identify your connection than it is identify your relationship. Because when we say relationship, we think on intimate level.
Right, because the connection is if I'm connected to my cousin because that's my cousin. But
that's my mother's
sister's that's my mother's son. Whoever's son or niece or whatever. So that makes that person my cousin. But then I have cousins who are my friends. You know, they are related to me, but they end up being my friend as well. Because clearly we all know, especially in the black culture, no, let me not even say that, everybody's culture, you can't trust all your cousins. So, with that being said, you know, you're connected to that person through relation. You know, okay, that's your mom's brother's daughter or whatever. But, you know, the part of the relationship that is different is if you have the friendship or, you know, like a different type of...
Absolutely. Because every relationship starts with a connection. So if you have somebody that you work with, you know, it's like people use the term friend so loosely. Right. You know, they're like, oh, really, that's my friend from work.
Anybody you meet, I have people in my family like this. Yeah. Anybody they meet, again, because that's my friend from Texas.
Yeah.
Well, oh, so where'd you meet that
person from
we met on a cruise. Okay. So that becomes your friend overnight. Like, you don't know nothing about this person. They have no loyalty to you whatsoever. But that's your friend.
Exactly, because you are not identifying the relationship properly. You are not identifying the relationship by the connection. You know what I mean? And, you know, I have them in my family, too, where everybody's a cousin. Everybody is not my cousin. In Trenton, New Jersey, everybody's not my cousin.
Public service announcement.
I need y'all to know this. We may be related, really. Like, I do have a lot of family in Trenton, but, I mean, come on. In ShopRite, you're not going to introduce me as my cousin. You're not going to be like, hey, I'm your cousin. And you're not. I'm just sorry. But...
I ain't never heard it.
But we can be connected in a different way. We can be connected through church. We can be connected through work. We can be connected through a club or an organization. Right. You know, we have to identify how we're connected to people. And the problem that people don't understand is that when you misidentify relationships and you misidentify connections, then you have expectations of that relationship that are not necessarily true to that relationship. You know, if that person is just your coworker, then you can't expect them to look out for you as if they were a friend. Or
now when they go in the meeting and throw you under the bus.
Exactly.
You should not have expected them to do anything other than that.
Exactly.
Because they're just your coworkers.
It's like when you see a snake, you identify that it's a snake, because you know that snakes have a propensity to bite.
That's right.
So if you don't want to get bit, you need to make sure, okay, that's a snake. I need to...
But guess what? Not only do I identify the snake, but I'm watching the snake.
Absolutely.
I don't turn my back on the snake knowing that it's around here. You know, I'm going to be like, okay, I've identified it as a snake.
Yeah.
So therefore, I'm going to treat it like a snake, but I'm going to watch it.
But what you just did.
I just had to talk about the snakes out there.
You just transitioned into the next level level of identifying the relationship. So you identify the connection, right? But then you identify what type of connection that you have, because, like I said, we're connected to people usually through mundane and menial ways, you know. But sometimes you have to understand that not every relationship is a beneficial or benign relationship. Some relationships are parasitic, where people are trying to take from you. The only reason they want to be connected to you is to take from you. And that's a parasitic relationship. So you have to identify the relationship. Say, how am I connected to this person? And then say, you know, what is the level of this relationship? Is this relationship, there's a word in science called symbiotic, where we both benefit. It's very scientific. Both of us benefit from it. You know, symbiotic relationship is, you know, I'm big and you're small, so I get the fruit from the tree, but you know how to cook it. So whenever I pick the fruit from the tree, I give it to you, you cook it, and we both eat. That's a symbiotic relationship. A parasitic relationship is I get this fruit from the tree, give it to you to cook, and you run off with it every time. You know, we need to stay away from relationships like that. But the problem is, once you are connected to somebody, usually you're going to continually be connected to that person. And that's the problem that we have with people who are in familial relationships, like, you know, brothers and sisters and parents and all of that. The problem with those relationships a lot of times is that people try to cut them off. They try to sever the connection, but when you're in a family environment, you can never 100% sever that relationship.
I mean, because you're still connected. Maybe the way you were in that relationship, maybe that has changed. Maybe where you used to be, you know, really close with a person, maybe they did something that, you know, made you feel like they, you know, you didn't have that much trust in them or whatever. They weren't honest. So you may have to back up in the relationship. But if you're connected to that person through family, mostly, you know, when you're dating somebody and y'all done, listen, when it comes to Shaone Bush, this is a public service announcement. If I have ever dated you, I have never looked back. So I don't consider exes. I don't say exes, and I say someone I used to date back in the day, whatever. Mm-hmm. Like it means nothing to me. Nothing I've ever had means anything to me. In that sense, those romantic relationships, because when I was done with that person, or it was no longer a romantic situation, I can be like, okay, that's completely done. But when it's like my family, one of my cousins did me wrong or something like that, I'm still going to see cousin at the funeral. You're still going to see cousin at the family cookouts. So you still have to have a level of respect for, you know, the connection that you have. That don't mean you got to be buddy-buddy, but I'm just saying that some connections you can't just cut and just be like, yeah, that's it.
You can't just sever relationships with people you are continually connected to. You know what I mean? If y'all, we talked about this, Shay and I, before, that if you were married to somebody and then you got a divorce but y'all have kids, y'all still connected. You know what I mean? Yep. So you have to re-identify your relationship. You are no longer husband and wife. Now you are my child's mother. And, you know, from the other standpoint, you are my child's father. And we should be able to respect and embrace the fact that that's who they are. You know, if we misidentify relationships, we are always going to find ourselves going through motions of, you know, being in relationships that are non-functional, because because they're not supposed to be that from the jump. You know, I think we put a little bit too much emphasis on relationships that are not the word I used before. They're just benign relationships. They're just somebody I know. You know, it's so crazy. I was watching what movie was that? Like Set It Off or something like that. And you know, they kind of brought Jada Pinkett's character in and was like, you know him because he was in the projects. And she was like, I can't help who I know. Like, I've seen him around the projects. He's not my boy. You know, I can't help who I know. Sometimes you can't help the connections that you have, but when you identify the relationship or the connection that you have with those people, then you'll be able to better understand where you stand with that person. You know, one of the things that I have an issue with on Facebook is people, you know, I'm closing up my circle. If you don't like me, I'm cutting you off. Family, friends, whoever. And they just, you know, and I understand the mentality behind it. Don't get me wrong. I do understand that you need to distance yourself from parasitic relationships. However, my thing is not everybody is going to be your friend. Not everybody is your friend. Just like Shay said, there's a difference between my relationship with my cousins and my relationship with my friends. Mm-hmm. Now, some of my friends are my cousins.
Right.
A lot of my friends I would consider, they happen to be my cousin.
Family or whatever, yeah.
You know what I mean? And there are a lot of people that I work with that I now, you know, I embrace those people as friends and close confidants. People that I've met haphazardly through church. Mm-hmm. I claim those people as cousins. But you got to understand that even if the friendship changes, the initial connection is not going to change. And you're always going to be connected to that person unless you really pick up and move from, you know, from where you are. If you were at a church and, you know, I don't recommend this, you're going to be connected to that person you don't like at the church until you find another church. And then if they join the next church, then you're going to be connected to them again. Yeah. You just have to realize and understand how to coexist with that person. Mm-hmm. That's a great word. Coexist with that person within the realms of your connection. So
how do you identify? So you're dating somebody, or you're married to someone, whatever. And so how do you identify, number one, your relationship, and then the relationships you guys have with other people?
Well, and that kind of goes into, like, we have this whole thing, and that goes into the under the last umbrella. So go back to the beginning. There are 3 things that you have to do in every relationship. 3 things that are necessary in every relationship. The first one is identify your relationship. Identify your connection. Right. How you're connected.
Make sure you're in a relationship first.
Yeah. Identify your connection. Then understand what type of connection it is. Is it a beneficial connection? Is it a parasitic connection? Is it a benign connection? Like you just, you know, the person I see at the post office, like, I don't know your name, but we're connected because every time I go in there to get stamps, you're there. Mm-hmm. But I don't know you. You know what I mean? That's just a benign relationship. So we identify the relationship, identify the connection, but then the second thing is to legitimize the relationship. There's always a process of legitimization. Is that a word? I don't know. It is now. There's always a process and a responsibility and a sacrifice of legitimization. But the last part is what you just brought up, is prioritize. People don't understand that different relationships have different priorities on a scale of, you know, if it was linear or vertically linear, there are some relationships that are up here, right, and then there are some relationships that are down here.
Yep. Basically, after Jesus, it's me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you really have to understand that every relationship plays a part in the makeup of who you are. Mm-hmm. And every relationship has a different amount of sacrifice, yeah, and a different amount of responsibility, Every relationship has a different amount of
different
investment, different expectations. So the first relationship that trumps all other, I don't even like using that word, my neck itched when I said it. The first relationship...
You can't use Trump.
No. The first relationship that is above all other relationships is your relationship with God.
That's right.
That relationship is the primary relationship of your life. And really, before you can get into any other relationships and function properly in any other relationships, you have to establish a relationship with God. Now,
I was getting ready to say that sets up your success.
Yeah.
Your relationship with Him helps you have successful relationships around you. Even though you can't, control people, people gonna be who they are, but it just helps you manage those relationships better.
Yeah. Because your relationship with God,
like when you get on my nerves,
humbles you.
I go to Jesus.
Well, you know what?
Because all about my struggles,
and He tell you all about yourself. He'll tell you. He's like,
I'll be like, Jesus, get your boy.
And he was like, no. He was like, no, you get you.
Get your boy.
That's what he says. He be like, no, you need to check yourself.
I'll be like, if he really got the Holy Ghost, he'll hear you.
But so prioritize. So we have our relationship with God, and if you're married, what a lot of people don't understand and a lot of people don't want to accept is that after your relationship with God, your marital relationship comes second above all other relationships. A lot of people don't like to make that statement or they don't like to accept the fact that your spouse is, after God, is the primary relationship in your life. Mm-hmm. And everything else has to kind of find a way to exist within your marital relationship. Even your kids. A lot of people put their kids above their spouse, and then they find themselves getting a divorce. Now, it wasn't the kid's fault.
Right.
But you can't put your kids above your spouse. I'm not saying you can't put your kids above your boyfriend or your girlfriend.
You absolutely should.
You should. And that's what I mean by prioritizing. When you put somebody in a spot where they don't belong, you're always going to find failure. Because a part of a functional relationship is knowing where it falls in the grand spectrum of your life. If you give the wrong relationship too much of your time, if you give the wrong relationship too much investment, it's going to become cancerous to you. The relationship is going to fail. All of your other relationships are going to fail. Now, if I put my wife first and, my friends can't handle it, then I need to figure out, okay, number one, are they really my friend? I have to re-identify my relationship because my friends should love my wife because I love my wife, So that whole prioritizing thing plays a big part, plays a really big part in finding functional relationships. Parents, that is a very, very crucial relationship in your life. That's a relationship that's kind of up here. Your kids is up here. I wish I could make a flow chart to kind of show, but even that wouldn't even, it wouldn't do justice to how crucial it is for you to prioritize. Because especially when you're in a marital relationship, you have to find a way to figure out how to come together so that you can be there, you and your spouse can be there for all of the other relationships that you're in. So how can I love my wife and put her first, but still take care of my kids? How can I love my spouse and put her first, but still be there for my mother and my father who need me? So, prioritizing is a huge thing. But just to recap, excuse me, I got a little frog in my throat.
Yeah.
So just to recap, we have identify, legitimize, and prioritize. Now, we're running out of time today. But what I want to do is maybe next week we can talk about legitimizing relationships, because that's a big thing. Legitimize relationship. And let me give you before we log off, let me give you a real quick snippet about what legitimizing a relationship is. All right.
Tell them.
Some people are in a fantasy relationship. Some people believe that they're connected to a person in a way that is illegitimate. And going through the legitimization process will help you further identify your relationship and help it grow. One way that we legitimize relationships is when she became my wife, there was a process. We had to go down to the courthouse. We had to get the documentation. We had to get married. We had to get the documentation signed.
Yep.
So it's a legally binding document that says she is my wife and I am her husband. It's legitimized. This is not in her head.
Not in my mind.
This is not something she made up, right, because it's legitimized.
There might be some out there who may believe.
But that's what I'm saying. There are
but
some
I'm
people,
the only one.
You know, we hear stories all the time. We were talking to this, pastor and first lady. I won't even. This is, if you know me, it's nobody you think of off the top of your head.
So don't even try to guess.
They
don't live nowhere near here. No. Don't even try to figure it out.
So don't even try to figure it out. But there's a pastor and first lady.
Don't text me afterwards.
Who told us about this time. We've done a lot of research. This is why we've been talking to so many people. There is a pastor and first lady who was dealing with an issue of a woman at the church who was saying that the pastor was her husband. Was her husband. And going forth. It was at one point, this person had contacted the first lady and said, "Those are my kids. I don't know how you treat my kids, but something's about to change." Right. But
pretty much
it was all up here,
all in her mind,
because nothing about the relationship with her and that pastor was legitimized. It was all her. She tried to make a connection that wasn't there. She tried to establish a relationship that was false.
There was even another lady in their same church who was telling everybody that she was the first lady. Like for real. Like going around church, like introducing herself to people and saying, "I'm the pastor's wife, so-and-so, first lady, whatever." That's
here.
Up here. That's crazy.
And the problem with a lot of people is they're in a relationship that is
or they're admiring somebody from afar, and they've created this whole thing in their mind.
Let me tell you something. There are people who are boyfriend and girlfriend with each other, and she's telling everybody, "Oh yeah, that's my husband. The Lord told me that's my husband." He ain't your husband until it's legitimized. So you might as well stop saying.
Hello.
All right. So I don't want to get too much into that, but I think next week we are going to go more into legitimizing, so that we can help you all have better relationships in general. We're writing a book, and the book is becoming more about just learning how to interact with people and how to have functional relationships in general than it is about marital relationships. I feel like maybe the next book that we write may go into, love and relationships in that way. But right now, I just really want you guys, I really want families to come back together. I really want mothers and daughters and fathers and sons and cousins and uncles and all of that. I really want these people to come back together and really coexist and function on a very successful level. So,
while you was talking, I deleted somebody from your friends list.
You didn't.
Just wanted to put that out there in Facebook land. Yeah, while he was talking. Look.
No.
Legitimate, for real. This is legitimate, guys. I can't pull it up now because I didn't mess it up. But I was straight on his right here. And I said, "Ooh, somebody done popped up in the front." And I never do this. But all of this was out. You don't need to be my husband's friend.
But why are you doing that?
Go ahead. Go back to what you were saying.
See, because
the Lord wanted me to see that.
What she's trying to do is
keep him from.
She's trying to sever a connection. Because my thing is, not every relationship is a good relationship. Some relationships and some connections need to be severed.
I'm destroying it before it can even take hold. You understand? All of this doesn't need to be out. When you trying to, he's a married man now. You don't need to be his friend.
All right, so that's another way.
Right, so
that's another way.
I figured I would share that. Just
I don't know what category.
This is real.
I don't understand. I don't know what category that falls.
That falls under.
Identify.
Don't play with Shaone Bush.
Relationship.
Right there.com.
Well, on that note, everybody out there in Facebook land, we're excited about what's going on in this season. We hope that you are going to stick with us, and for all of those who are watching after this is not live, don't forget to share it. Don't forget to tag us in it, and just so that we can see how far this is reaching.
Yep.
And we're excited to hear all your comments. Don't forget to email us with any questions or topics that you want to hear.
Yeah. Or if you have, some. Yeah, because I feel like I wanna address something that I saw on social media about somebody's relationship. I don't know this person, but somebody else was talking about this whole thing, and I'm not big on social media anymore. I like to post what needs to be posted, and that's it. But anyway, I want to bring it up as a topic. So if you know anything that you want to share, or you want to talk about, your girlfriend's too shy to ask for advice, just bring it up. Email it to us at sundayswiththebushes@gmail.com. Sundayswiththebushes with the ES.com. And we'll bring it up. We won't even say who sent it to us. We'll just bring it up as a topic.
Yeah,
I like topics, and I like being able to interact with people because that gets me to understand how people are thinking on there.
Absolutely. I mean, because, if we can get to the psychology of why relationships fail, then hopefully we can reverse that psychology and, bring it into the place where people can have successful, functional relationships. That's what it's all about. Jesus talks in the Bible that people will know that we're his disciples by the love that we show to one another, and that falls under the umbrella of relationships. Jesus talks a lot about loving your neighbor as yourself, loving your brother. He that findeth a friend must first show himself friendly, and then there is a friend that sticketh closer than a brother. So, a part of who we are as Christians is part of, if you're spiritual, even if you're not a Christian and you watch the show, these religions are really trying to bring us to a place where we can function as a society on a plane where we're not always against each other or at odds. Not everybody's your enemy, and you'll find out that once you get past all of your hangups, you'll find that you'll have more friends than you really think that you could have. So we love y'all. We out, and
I'm looking kind of thin on this video.
Well,
I got the anime bullet arms.
You ain't got it yet. We gotta work this out.
See y'all next week.
We gonna see y'all next week.
Catch y'all Sundays with the Bushes. Make sure y'all share.
Share, and post. We out.